Good afternoon. Thank you for joining California Lawyers for the Arts for a guide to unemployment and pandemic unemployment assistance. My name is Renee Reisman, and I'm the Education Program Coordinator for California Lawyers of the Arts in Los Angeles. Before we begin the workshop, I would like to briefly share a little bit about our organization and our services. California Lawyers for the Arts is a statewide nonprofit founded in 1974, serving artists and arts organizations. We currently have offices in San Francisco, Berkeley, Sacramento, Los Angeles, and San Diego. We offer memberships with benefits such as workshop discounts and archive content. So please go to our website, calawyersforthearts.org, for more information. We offer 3 core services for the arts community. The first is our lawyer referral and information service, which is a State Bar of California certified LRIF creative artists with attorneys throughout all of California. We also administer the California Inventors Assistant Program, also known as CIAP, to assist independent inventors and small startups with their patent legal issues. Our Arts Arbitration and Mediation Services, otherwise known as AAMS, provides low-cost community conflict resolution services. All mediations are voluntary, confidential, and seek to resolve disputes for the parties outside of court. And finally, we have what brings you here tonight, which is our education programming, where we offer a variety of workshops, symposia, and conferences on various legal topics for artists and art organizations. Let us say thank you to Jeff Thompson for speaking on this guide to the unemployment system.
Thanks so much, Renee. Hey, everybody. It is honestly a crazy time. I, just like you, started 2020 thinking this is going to be my year, right? I'm going to achieve all my acting and writing dreams. I'm going to sell so many scripts. I'm going to produce so many scripts, and also going to act and direct in all of those scripts as well. So we're all overwhelmed, and even more so is all of us dealing with our financial situations. So I'm trying to provide as much guidance as possible. I am a tax preparer in addition to acting and writing. Also, I teach psychology. So if you guys have any random psychology questions that you just want to save for the end, we can do that. I just did a social psychology lecture earlier today, so I'm like shifting gears completely. So let's just talk about where things are today. So some of you, I'm assuming, have already applied with the EDD, have tried to get on the phone with the EDD. If you're not familiar, the EDD is the Employee Development Department of California. If you're dealing with paid family leave, disability, or unemployment, you're dealing with that department. So they are unfortunately overwhelmed. I actually, before I got on, looked up some stats just to see where things are. So currently in California, 5.5 million people have applied for unemployment. This is the largest chunk of unemployment filings to happen in, I think, the history of California. So the last recession, the height of that, we filed in this past 2 months 7 times as many applications as our last recession. So please be, oh, there's a dog that's walking in. There are going to be animals walking in and out. So if you hear anything, I promise everybody's fine. We have new puppy. There are 2 cats. They're learning to love each other. But the EDD is overwhelmed. The deputy director was talking about how overwhelmed they are. I know, poor government agencies, but they have about a few thousand people on staff right now. And she said that they would probably need close to 20,000 people. Oh, and there's an earthquake. Of course, there's an earthquake today. So for anyone who is out in San Bernardino, I hope you're safe. Of course. So, and then midway through this, murder hornets are just going to walk in and just sting me. So, one thing at a time. So, I know that a lot of you are stressed, and I know that it is impossible or near impossible to get somebody on the phone. So, my goal is to give you as much information as possible to make this process as streamlined as possible. So, there are basically 2 situations that you might find yourself in. You either have had some W-2 income in the past 18 months, or you have not. So if you have had any W-2 income in the past 18 months, you need to start by filing for traditional unemployment. So even if you got one residual check 13 months ago for $100, and they took just like $3 of taxes out of it and paid whatever the unemployment insurance would be on that, you still have to file through the traditional unemployment, because that is just the way the law is right now. So once that is exhausted, you can look at other things. So you can look at PUA, which is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, and that is for people who do not traditionally qualify for other types of, or for regular unemployment. So if you've been paying attention to the CARES Act, PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, has been designed for people who don't pay into unemployment. So if you are all 1099, working for yourself, then you would qualify for this. If you are an S Corp, then you should be paying yourself as an employee. So this shouldn't apply to you. If you are an LLC and you're being treated as a partnership or a sole proprietorship, then this will probably apply to you. With exhausted, you have up to 26 weeks to claim traditional unemployment insurance. So you would have had to go past that 26 weeks. The other thing with that is there is now an extension being given for unemployment. So you can get up to 13 weeks of unemployment. So the way it works with qualifying for the PUA, you'll apply for unemployment insurance, then you'll get a letter saying, hey, we're going to give you $0. And then you'll go, great, I applied for nothing. But then from there, you apply for PUA, and then based off of your income, which is a very annoying calculation, they will give you, so it ranges from $167 a week to $450 a week based off of your total income from your business from the previous year, so 2019. So if you have your books up to date, if you have filed your 2019 tax return, if you've done either of those, then you should have all the information that you need to file that specifically. If you have not, then you'll want to get your books in order. So if you have not filed your 2019 tax returns, you'll want to look at your 1099s and any cash income that you have, and look at all your expenses, and then you'll report your total income. The way they calculate total income, which is why I mentioned it's super annoying, they calculate it as your net income. So income from business minus your business expenses minus your taxes paid. So taxes paid specifically related to the business. So if you are not caught up with your taxes, it's going to be more helpful to you if you if you have a tax repair that you're working on, or if you've been getting ready for that. Friendly reminder, the tax deadline is July 15th, so you'll want to have that in order. But that's only if you haven't had any W-2s in the past 18 months. If you have, then you're going to go through UI, unemployment insurance, and then you'll exhaust that. And then you'll also go through the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, the PEUC. So there's also the PAC, which you may have heard about, the extra $600 that you can receive per week, which is amazing. So that lasts from 3/29 to 7/25. So from March 29th through July 25th. It technically expires a little bit early because of how the claims are processed, but for any claims that are happening during that period, you'll get an extra $600 a month. So let's say you qualified for PUA, you got your 167 minimum a week, you'll also get the additional PAC, which is $600. So that would be $767 per week. If you were getting unemployment insurance, whatever your unemployment claim would be, if it were $100 that you're getting per week, it would be 100 plus 600. And that extra amount will last all the way through July 25th. If you've only been 1099 and you haven't received a W-2 for anything, so like, let's say you did a little bit of extra work for a company and it was like, you know, paid through a payroll company and you received a W-2, even if it was for $150 6 months ago, because that company paid into unemployment, then you would have to go through unemployment first. But if you are 100% 1099, then you will go straight through PUA first. So I do have some information on how those applications work. I will also give you some links in the
description below,
because there are like YouTube videos that go through like the step by step, and I do feel like it would be boring for me to go step by step through every possibility for all of you, but I do have some general guidelines. One of them that I'm just going to get out of the way right now: so many of my clients are so worried about making a mistake on their applications and going to jail. Relax, take a deep breath. So real quick, not a lawyer, not legal advice. This is not a legal opinion. But I'm not a lawyer, but I can read. And they specifically have rules on what they consider fraudulent and what they consider an honest mistake. So when it comes to fraud, and from what I've heard, again, not a legal opinion, fraud is the willful intent to deceive. So let's say you're doing your application and you forget about a W-2 that you had 17 months ago, right? And you don't include that on your application. You're not going to go to jail. Probably. Not legal advice. Now, should you do your due diligence and make sure that you've been exhaustive in your search, right? Should you go through, hopefully you have a file of your last 3 years of pay stubs, 1099s, W-2s, etc., so you can know how far back your history goes, so that you can like double check things, or you have copies of your tax return so you can see, oh yeah, that's right, I did get paid from that one company, right? So if you make a mistake and they overpay you, they'll just ask you to pay the money back. If it is fraud, they will ask you to pay the money back and charge a 30% penalty on that amount. And they might prevent you from applying for, I don't remember what the period is, but they'll set a period where you cannot apply for unemployment benefits. So just don't do anything illegal. Do not try to defraud the EDD. They're working so hard. They're trying their best. The last thing that they need to do is deal with fraud. But if you make an honest mistake, then the worst thing that will happen is you might have to pay some money back, or it could delay your application. So really, the important thing is do your homework up front so that you make sure that you have everything prepared before the application. Now, you might be wondering, Jeff, what kind of homework should I do? That's a great question. So to make an account, you'll need your name, date of birth, and an email address, ideally a personal email address. So that would be the first thing to gather. You'll want to have your employment history. For some of us, this is a very fun thing because I have some clients whose W-2s and pay stubs look like this. I have some clients who like literally mail me huge USPS like envelopes of things, and those are my favorite clients. I love them because they really make accounting worth the challenge. But you're going to want to look at what you've been paid over the past 18 months. This is why having your tax filings is helpful for 2019, because when it comes to PUA, they're just going to ask for your total income. So you can look at your Schedule C or your Schedule K1 or like whatever thing that you're getting that represents your business income. And then the calculations will be relatively easy if you have a tax preparer and you are nice to them and, send them an edible arrangement, I'm sure they will be happy to. By the way, if you give somebody a gift for business, up to $25 is deductible per person per year. So if you get a cheap edible arrangement, it's deductible for next year. Think about it. So this is me just hoping that after this, I get a whole bunch of fruit baskets, but that's for later. But many tax professionals will be more than willing to help you find the relevant information. It does get confusing because the EDD usually phrases things in a way that means something different in tax world. So for example, they say independent contractor / self-employed. In tax world, it's the same thing. In loan world and EDD world, they're different. It's fine. It's like Spanish and Portuguese. They're similar enough most of the time, but sometimes we confuse each other. So definitely make sure you have your pay stubs. Make sure if you have like a profit loss sheet for last year, that will be very helpful for PUA. If you're just doing unemployment insurance, you'll want to look at your payment history. But I believe when you certify, you'll only be certifying the 2 weeks leading up to the date of certification. So let's just say today you were unemployed, then you would look back 2 weeks. So make sure you have the past 2 weeks. The certification date is going to depend on when they ask you to certify. So there are some specific rules for what happens if you are an independent contractor. So for example, let's say I made $900 for a contract that lasted me a month, right? So I get paid at the end of the month on the 30th. So you might say, Jeff, you got paid $900 on the 30th. That means for that week, you claim $900. Incorrect. You actually divide the amount that you were paid by the term of the contract. So if I have a 30 contract, then that means I got paid $30 per day, according to the EDD. So if they're asking how much I made per week, 900 divided by 30 is $30 per day. There are 7 days in a week. Last time I checked, not wearing a watch. So that's 30 times 7, which we all know is $364 or $210, somewhere in between. So for that week, even though I got paid $900 that week, I only certify $210 for that week, $210 for the previous week, $210 for the previous 2 weeks if I'm certifying that far back. So there are some little rules here and there. I do recommend, they have 2 great YouTube videos, which are great. I highly recommend them because they will go over all these things so that you have them fresh in your mind as you're applying. One is specifically for self-employed people. And another, which it's California, baby, is specifically for people in the entertainment industry. It covers residuals. It's beautiful. So if you watch those 2 when you're doing the certification process, you'll be in the clear. So yes, if you got the award of above 0, then you qualify for UI. So you have to exhaust that before PUA is considered. And also, more than likely, for the rest of the year, you'll be good. So unfortunately, that's just kind of the way the system works. So some people are getting slightly less, but if you care for the reason. So UI comes from the state. The PUA comes from the federal government. So the state is mandated to pay out what they owe you first before asking for additional money from the federal government to pay you. So the requirement of the law is you get the money that you should get anyway for being unemployed as a W-2, and then if you exhaust that and you need it, then you get the money from the federal government, even if the benefits would have been a little bit more. So one hot tip of talking about not lying on the application. So one thing that the EDD said which a lot of you, when you see the application, you're going to feel hesitant about, especially if you've applied for unemployment insurance before. There's a question that asks you, are you currently seeking work? Now, a lot of us are not currently seeking work because we know that we cannot get work right now. My key grip friends, my gaffers, right? There aren't sets for you to be on. So, some of us writers might be able to work from home. Some writers, some producers might still be engaged, and we might be able to still pursue work. We might be able to meet with people, that type of thing. But if you are unable to pursue work because you just know that there's no work to pursue, you can say no, and it will not negatively affect your application. That was specifically on their website. So if you saw that and you were hesitant because you're like, am I gonna get, is it gonna mess me up? So if you were worried about that, know that it's not a thing to be concerned about. They know that a lot of people, even if they would like to work, cannot work, they cannot pursue work in their industry because there's nothing to be done. So if that was your concern, know that it doesn't need to be your concern. So the thing that I'll point out is just think of your regular unemployment benefits, right? So that's just UI. You don't need to remember the abbreviation for that one because it's just unemployment, right? The only real important abbreviation is the PUA, which is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, which is if you're not eligible for UI, then you're eligible for PUA. So the PEUC is just additional UI benefits for 13 weeks. So you don't even need to know that it's a thing. There's no form that you need to apply for. It is automatically, you're automatically enrolled in it if you have an application. So if you don't remember PEUC, then don't worry about it because it's automatic. The other one is the PAC, the Pandemic Additional Compensation. It's fine if you don't remember that one. Just know until July 25th, you're getting an additional $600 a week. If your employer, so I'm just going to make a broad assumption, and if this assumption applies to you, then it applies to you, that if based on the timing, your employer let you go due to COVID-19, so if it was because they couldn't hire anyone or they didn't have enough capacity to hire people, then that would be what you would put. So the terminology is very particular, but if you were just if any of us were fired, then that changes eligibility, but also because you're unable to find work because of COVID-19, that might also make you eligible. So I wouldn't be able to specifically say what the best advice would be, but my advice would just be answer honestly with what feels the most honest, and then you'll be good. As long as you're not defrauding anyone, not legal advice, not a legal opinion, then you should be good. But also, not legal advice, not legal opinion. Although I just got errors and omissions insurance, so I can say whatever I want. That I don't think that's how that works. So one thing for those of you selecting or starting a new account, they have the option of certifying online versus certifying by mail. If you can certify online, or not, sorry, certify, but validate your identity online, because there are just delays in the mail processing, and it's just been it happened to my roommate where it took him forever to get the letter, and then he just had to keep on calling until he was finally able to get somebody on the line. And then there was a tech runaround. So real quick, so when you're dealing with the claim of being laid off or having a lack of work due to COVID, there are a few things that some people might not realize that they're eligible for. So I just wanted to go through those real quick. So obviously, if you are diagnosed with COVID-19 and you're experiencing symptoms and you can't work, or if you are unable to work because a healthcare advisor advised you to self-quarantine, then you are eligible for unemployment because you cannot pursue work. But also, if a member of your household has been diagnosed with COVID-19 and you have to take care of them, or if actually the care part is separate, even if there's just a diagnosis of a family member in your household with COVID-19, that's reason enough to apply for unemployment insurance. But if you're providing care for a family member or a member of your household who has been diagnosed, you are eligible for unemployment. If a child or other person in the household who you're providing caregiving or who you have caregiving responsibility for is unable to attend school or a care facility, so maybe you have a dependent adult child who usually is in a facility during the day that allows you to pursue work, but you can't use it anymore because of COVID-19, you have to stay home to take care of them, then you're eligible. Let's see, if due to the death of a major breadwinner or major financial supporter of the household, you are now in charge of taking care of the household, then you are eligible for unemployment. If you had to quit your job because of COVID-19, or if your place of employment is closed, if you were scheduled to start a job, so let's say mid-February, you had that final interview, you closed with HR, you're like, March is gonna be my month, and you were unable to work that job because of COVID-19, then you would be eligible. Or if you're unable to reach your place of employment because of a COVID-19 health emergency, you are eligible. If you work as an independent contractor, hi guys, with reportable income, you may also qualify for PUA benefits. So that's the one that I told you to pay attention to, pandemic unemployment assistance. If you are unemployed, partially employed, or unable or unavailable to work because of COVID-19 public health emergency. So that partially employed is really important. So let's say based off, so maybe you're usually working 2 jobs, right? And one job cut your hours completely or significantly cut your hours and you're just working that one job. So usually you're taking home, $1,000 a week, but now you're taking home 500. Because of that loss in wages, you might be eligible for unemployment. So there are a lot of people who aren't traditionally eligible who now, due to COVID-19, are eligible. So if those situations apply to you, then make sure that you're getting that money. And those benefits would apply all the way back to the time when you became eligible. So let's just real quick talk about PUA a little bit more in depth. So as you're aware, business owners, self-employed persons, independent contractors, or people with limited work history. So let's say you were about to start your first job and you didn't, you were like fresh out of college, you're about to start a job, you would qualify for a PUA, or if, it's been 2 years since you last worked, you could qualify for PUA. So there are specific questions and it goes through this in the instructions, but just know that when you're applying, so for on the employment history screen, it's going to ask you to supply your last employer information. You will say no on that screen. So if there are questions that don't apply to you, answer them no, right? There are a couple weird quirks with the application. So one thing to be aware of is there are some questions with a little asterisks, and when you see the little star thingy is what I'll call it because the sound is hard. So if you see the little star thingy, it means it's a required question. So there are some questions that seem like you have to answer them, but if they don't have the little star next to them, then it's okay to skip them. Now, if there's ever a question that's not required, but it asks you to give more information, you can save a lot of time in the application process by adding more information. So let's just say you're putting information for a residual check that you got. And there's a little box that says, would you like to provide more information, right? Put in that box, this is a residual for a show that I did a year and a half ago, and I just got this amount for this week, right? So then when they're going over that application, they don't have to follow up with you and ask about that information. So if there's an option to provide more information about something, do it so that they don't have to ask you questions about it later. Everything that has an asterisk, obviously, answer it if it's not required. So for example, there's one question where like you just, if it doesn't apply to you, just don't answer it. So just pay attention to those asterisks. Sometimes when my clients go through applications, they feel all the anxiety. Like, relax. Like, imagine like this is your self-care routine, right? Draw a bath, pour yourself a glass of wine, right? This is just like a fun, like sultry, just like fun experience. So realize that like it's not as big a deal as it seems. The worst case scenario, someone follows up for more information and then you clarify. But definitely as you're going through, just take your time, read through the questions. If they don't apply to you and you don't have to answer them, don't answer them, but provide information where you can. And also, if I haven't mentioned this before, it can be backdated if you qualify. So if you were eligible since April, then you can get your backdated payments. So one cool thing about the PUA is they changed the amount that you can receive. It used to just be a flat $167 a week plus the $600 extra, but based off of your income, you could be eligible for up to $450 a week, which would be with the $600, $1,050 a week total, which is a pretty nice amount. Now, one thing that people sometimes forget is that you will pay taxes on what you receive for unemployment compensation. There is an option to have 10% withheld from your whatever's paid. So if you receive $1,000, they hold on to $100 and that goes towards your taxes at the end of the year. If you can, I recommend it. It just makes it so that you have a smaller tax bill at the end of the year, or that you maybe get a larger refund. But also I understand that some people need as much money as they can at once. So my general advice to my clients is always, if you can put it towards and like take the withholding and be fine with like the net amount, do it. But if you can't, just remember, for every $100 you receive, you're going to pay at least 10% of that or more in taxes. So don't be surprised by that tax bill. Fun fact, only for the IRS. The state doesn't charge you tax on your unemployment benefits. So you only have to deal with the IRS. So the extra 13 weeks we talked about, you're not eligible for that extra 13 weeks if you committed fraud or you filed a false statement and you're currently dealing with a false statement penalty. Hopefully that doesn't apply to any of you. You all seem so nice and honest. So that process is automatic. So regardless of when it happened, if you have a pending claim, you should receive a notice about it in the mail saying, hey, you exhausted your funds, but because of this new fun thing, which I'm not even going to say the abbreviation for because there are too many P words, but you'll get mail about it. If you had a claim that started on or after June 2nd, 2019, so basically a year ago, then you'll receive a notice in the mail around, if not last week, this week. Any other people who have exhausted their unemployment benefits, that extra 13 weeks will start in early July. So that doesn't, I'm not sure how many people that applies to, but just know that in addition to the 26 weeks that you have for UI, everybody just gets an extra 13 weeks. With residuals or royalties, you report them when you received them. The definition of received is going to depend on a few factors. In your bank account, it could be if your agent called you and said, hey, we're getting some residuals from that show you did. Or it could be when your union informs you that you got residuals, but essentially the day that you find out that the money is yours, that is when you report it. So let's say your agent calls you today and says, you're getting residuals, $150, kid, because agents always call you kid. If yours doesn't, you have a bad agent. So if you receive that notice today, you would report it as earned in this week, even if it took your agent a month to get you the payment. So if you have an agent who doesn't call you kid and doesn't take a while to get you your payments sometimes, do you even have an agent? So I say that I've only had wonderful experiences with all my representation. So I hope they're not watching and like going like, man, Jeff hates us. No, Lauren, Sarah, all of you, I love you. So I think it's time to answer some questions.
If I applied for both unemployment and PUA, but only got one, what does that mean?
If you applied for both and they gave you PUA, then it should mean that you weren't eligible for unemployment, but you were eligible for PUA.
If I reported the wrong amounts when I applied, how can I correct it?
There should be a way through the portal to adjust the information that you put in. If there's not, I would contact them and say, hey, oopsie, I made a mistake. And then, as mentioned before, if you got more money than you needed, or not needed because we all desperately need money right now, but then they decided that you were qualified for, then you'll just have to pay that back, or it might be deducted from your future payments. Or maybe you'll learn that you were eligible for more money and then you'll be able to get a little bit more, which would be the best situation. I always love when clients fix things and then they get more money. That is a joyous occasion. So see if there's an easy way to do it in the portal, but if not, reach out to them, inform them what happened, and then go from there.
If I am married and file taxes jointly, do I apply for unemployment based on myself only, or combined?
If you are married filing jointly, I believe that you still apply as an individual. I haven't, because all the certifications and identifications are based off of you as an individual. So I've never thought about that, but I think if you're unemployed and even if your spouse was still making money, you're still eligible for unemployment insurance. But then as soon as I get off, I'm going to frantically Google that. But I'm like 83% sure that that is the case, because otherwise there would be an application process for married couples. But also W-2s are tied to individuals, not couples. So I'm like 89.3% sure that you would have to have separate accounts, and technically both of you, if unemployed, could both file.
Do I have to have filed my taxes already to know what numbers I need to input when I file for unemployment?
So if you're an employee and you're only W-2 and you haven't filed your tax return, you still have everything that you need to file for unemployment. Because all your information, one, is already reported to the EDD, because when your employer pays you, they do all those filings. They are very fun. I've had to do them before. I love them. So you should have, like when you put in your information, they should pop up automatically. So if you haven't filed your 2019 tax returns, then you're fine. But also, if you haven't filed your 2019 tax returns, a lot of my clients are just sitting on money. So like, don't wait until 7/15. If you have time, pop them out, especially if you're just dealing with like a couple W-2s. And also, if you have somebody who does your taxes for you, don't wait until the last minute, because we are stressed. Usually our vacation is in April, but now it's not. So we're all just sweating blood.